chocolate.
So I have to say, like, when I first met Keith, I actually thought he was someone else's boyfriend. And he was looking at me like I was crazy. But the funny thing is, like, when I first met him, I was looking at my friend because I thought, you know, that was her boyfriend. I was like, good choice, because I thought he was like super handsome. So I would say first things first, I noticed his looks, his smile for sure. And it's funny, people think we're related because, you know, both of us smile like a lot, but we're not related. Yeah, so definitely his physical being attracted me to him. And then over time, you know, since I've gotten to know Keith, I would say like his character, how he's able to stay grounded, because like I'm the opposite. Like if something happens, I'm like, I'm here like 0 to 60, and he's like pretty much flat, and then eventually he may go up, but he's pretty much flat. And so that in a way grounds me as well. And the fact that he is a Christian and that he does strive to be better. You know, we're not perfect, but I do look up to him. You know, I admire him, like how he's able to walk this Christian life.
Now, even though Lizzie is not in a relationship, are you, and again, the assumptions that we make, is there a list in your mind of qualifications that guys have to meet? Please do tell.
Well, I'll be very blunt.
Go ahead.
And I may have to apologize to you
Please
for this
don't.
later. I have a note in my phone, and it says, if it's not a hell yes, it's a hell no.
Oh, please.
Because
no.
I just need that, because I've dated, and I'm like, oh yeah, this is nice. It's cool to have a companion. He's handsome. He makes me laugh. But then there's a lot of dysfunction. And so I need it to be super clear for me. Like, can I see this, like, marriage with this man? Because if I can't see marriage with this man, dating is just not, it's off the table. Because he can get to know me in a friendship. Yeah. If he really wants to get to know me, he's going to figure out how to hang out with me and my friends, how to come to church with me, or whatever it is. But I don't play. So yeah, my list, first of all, he has to be submitted to God.
No problem.
And when I say God, I mean God, Father, Son, Spirit.
So
must believe.
Theology, then.
Theology is very important to me. I'm very careful about that, because I think, you know, there's being equally yoked, which just means you're with somebody that you agree in your belief systems with. But kids ask crazy questions. And I plan to have children, whether it's biological or foster or adoptive, whatever it is, they ask crazy questions. And this is coming from a 5th grade teacher who talks to kids all the time. So I want to know that we're on the same page when we answer questions, and it doesn't mean that we've broken down every single theological point. It just means that we can come to a point where if it's a first-handed issue, we're together on it. But if it's a second-handed issue that doesn't really make a difference one way or the other, we're cool. Like, it's fine to disagree. So that's one. I must be attracted to him. So physique is important. I have learned that it's not shallow to turn them down. So, I mean, in your marriage, I'm just going to be blunt again, like, God created sex. So if you look like a bookshelf to me, it's just not going to work.
So if he's square, nope.
No, unless the Lord changes my heart, which is possible. But I do think that's important. I want us to have similar interests where we don't necessarily have to do the same things, but I can at least go alongside him in what he really likes to do, and he can at least come beside me in whatever I want to do. And also, it's very important to me that he loves my family, that has a heart for them. So, you know, my dad asked me, he's like, so baby, I'm gonna need you to have a man around this Christmas to help with the Christmas decorations, to put them up in the attic, take them down. Like, I'm so sorry, but I'll help you. So I want somebody that I don't have to ask, hey, will you go please help my dad? But somebody who's like, hey, doesn't your dad pull down the decorations around this time of the year? I think I'm gonna go hang out with him and help him out. Or somebody that can have a conversation with my brother and love my brother, and somebody who serves my mom in the kitchen. Those are things that are really important to me and that are intrinsically important to him, that I don't have to explain it, but that he just has such a heart to do it, that he'll just do it.
You said something that I picked up on. You said your father, I'm assuming he was joking, saying that you'd have to have somebody
Maybe.
by Christmas, and you did reveal your age. How much pressure is there to like find someone, get married, external pressures, and how do you deal with those pressures? Even internal pressures that you put on yourself. How do you deal with that?
Yeah, it's real out here in these streets. Actually, I've really enjoyed my singleness, and I've gotten to the point where I don't care about my age. That's why I shared it, because I'm cool with it. My parents, for a little while, they were, expecting me. Every time I was in a dating relationship, they expected it to become a marriage. And I honestly, that's the only reason I date. So that was kind of on the table. But they were upset when we would break up, even if I knew it was the right thing to do. And that's actually changed. My parents have become really accepting and encouraging to me to just take my time. And I've explained I would rather be content and single rather than rush into a marriage relationship that isn't of God or isn't necessary, right? So like I heard you say in a previous podcast that your marriage isn't about happiness, it's about holiness. Well, right now I'm more holy in my singleness, and I know that because if I weren't, God, who loves me and is jealous for me, would have gotten me married. Right? And I think there's a time when that will come. I really do believe that. But my pressure comes from my extended family. So I just went to my parents' anniversary party, and my aunt pulls me to the side and she goes, "So when are you going to start developing an interest in men?" Okay, well, it's not that simple. I like men, but I'm also not going to force myself to get married or to bring a man into our family, because I'm complete. I am whole. I am equally woman as all the other women who are married. I'm equally woman. And if God blesses me with a marriage, he will. And if he blesses me with singleness, he will. And it's fine. But I'm done. I'm good. Unless God says more. And I feel like society says no to that unless you are like chasing your career as a woman. And that's been interesting. But I've actually answered very honestly, even to my aunt and other family members who have expected me to bring someone home for a while. It's just not what God has for me right now, and I trust him. So. And again, you were saying that you're blunt, and I'm kind of blunt myself, where I feel as if once you're like out of college, like your pool just like shrinks. Yeah, significantly. So much. Especially when you're an elementary school teacher who pretty much only interacts with women. Yeah. So even at work and then at church. So I feel like there's that pressure there where, especially as people who are believers, it's like your only option is the church unless you're like intentionally going outside of your way. Like, I don't know if you've ever like done like any of those website things. Have you? No. I don't want to put you on blast. No, you can. I'm okay. No, but I haven't. I've thought about it, but it's not me. Like I think I would perform, right? Like, not intentionally, but when you're in an interview with somebody, even with cameras in the room, like, you perform. And so, for me, and several of my girlfriends have said I'm crazy for this, but I really honestly just want to skip dating. Like, I could go without it. Because what I want to do is be in a genuine friendship with a guy in a group, and then, if he develops an interest, courtship. So I would really like to do a formal courtship where he is like from day one, hey, look, I've been watching you for years. We're good friends. Here are the reasons that I want to pursue you for marriage, and I would like to start now. Can I meet your family? Can we have some real conversations? Can we just be clear about this? And then if it's not on the table, we're going to take it off the table. So we discover it quickly. And then I want to date forever. Like, I want to spend my life with that person and enjoy them and, flirt and all of those things, but it's bad for my heart otherwise. And so I that's the route I want to go. But
I hear you. And so, Tova, you're in a unique position too, but I'm sure there's pressures on your end. And I'll be completely honest. So I saw your Instagram, or not Instagram, Facebook post, and you were just talking about how you were angry at God and just having just a really candid moment on Facebook. Mm-hmm. And so the whole time I'm reading it, I don't know where you're going with it, but I'm thinking you're upset at an individual who we were nameless, but you were talking about something as far as career-wise, but at the end of the day, you were talking about the lesson that you were learning was patience, and so how has that been dealing with those pressures, either external or internal, on you are in a relationship, but wanting to, I guess, go to the next step and having to be patient in that? How have you navigated that?
Yeah, so just to give a little context, had a situation where I basically needed to be delivered from it. I have to be a little discreet about everything. But I was waiting for some tangible thing to come my way so that I could be delivered from that situation. And, people were telling me this was going to come my way like several times, and soon would happen, nothing. And so, long story short, I got tired of waiting. I just flipped out on God because I was like, you have the power to make this happen, and this whole time you've been telling me it's going to happen. Wait. And I did, and it was like up to that point of me getting mad, like I was out of time. I needed to make a move. And so, if I would have waited just a little bit longer, I wouldn't have had him gotten mad at God, because I ended up checking my email later after getting mad, and I had what I needed. And so what's interesting about that situation is, it makes me think about, me waiting to be engaged. I'll be blunt. It's not been easy, especially when I see other people who, I've gone to school with or not gone to school with, and they've been in a shorter dating span, and they're already married, and it's like I'm not even engaged yet. So back to this whole comparison thing. So my situation with me getting angry with God, that situation, and if I'd have just waited a little bit longer, I would have seen God work. Helps me be a little bit more patient with this whole engagement, waiting for it to happen, because it's if I can wait for that to happen, I can wait, for this to happen. But it's not easy, especially, Keith and I were talking, and I asked him, do people ask you, when are you going to propose to Tova? And he said, and I agree, that it's usually, no, it's usually me. I'm the one who's being asked. And I think it's funny because it's I don't have the power to make that happen. So why am I being asked? I know the answer to that. But yeah, I've been in the grocery store, and people I know will be like, oh, so when are you going to get married? Or, oh, now you've graduated and all that. What's next? When are you going to get married? And then even at work, people are they're looking at my finger after the winter break, and they're oh, he hasn't proposed yet. So it's yeah. I
feel like that would be so hard, because even so, from my perspective, if I talk to a guy and smile, there are women who are so he's cute. I just met him. But that happens with kids too. As soon as you get married, people are so when are you gonna have kids? And then you have the first child, and people are oh, so when are you gonna have another one? And I feel that can even speak to discontentment in our lives, right? Where it's easier to focus on other people a lot of the time than what's going on internally. But also, we like to be entertained by each other. It's entertaining to watch a relationship grow and develop. It's entertaining to watch kids grow up. But I feel for you, because I see people ask you, and I feel oh man, I would hate that so much. But you're very fortunate, Keith.
No, but it's such a real thing, because just harping off what you said, me and Mylena would see so many other people get married before us, and we would have to, because we were paying out of pocket, and so we would see people who were together less time than us, married before us, and we're like, geez, you know, what's going on? But it really hit home when we were married and everybody would get pregnant, you know, and we were trying to do, you know, let's try to wait, you know, some time, and I could definitely feel the pressure building for Mylena. And again, just not wanting to stereotype, but I do feel like it is a huge pressure for women, you know, even just thinking just biologically, you know, and having all those pressures that are on you, because as a man, it's not as much of a pressure for us, you know, we want to have kids, you know, but I can wait. But for a woman, that's constantly, you know, on her mind. And like you said, once we do have kids, now it's like, oh, when's the next one? So, and I don't necessarily want to call it discontent, but it's I guess it is, but making sure that not being influenced by the outside, letting the outside influence your relationship, and that does take some, you know, discipline, and not having that where you guys you can't let somebody else force you to do with something that you're not ready there and then. So yeah, like I said, I can definitely understand and relate to the pressures that you guys have to face. And I guess even that kind of brings me to gender roles, where it does seem, you know, some what's the word? There's double standards and things like that. But what are your thoughts on gender roles as it goes? I was joking with Lizzie that there's someone that we know who they are married, but like the wife drives them everywhere. And so from my vantage point, it's like, you know, just naturally speaking, it's something you as a man you're supposed to do, but this doesn't make him any less of a man. But I think gender roles are something that either we don't talk, we don't clarify, but it's a reality, you know. And I didn't know what you guys thought, because navigating life and being in relationships, are there gender roles? If there are gender roles, what are they? Are they universal? Is it just cultural? What are your thoughts and ideas? And I think I'll give you another example. I was talking with Lizzie before you guys came in, and again, I don't mean to put all your business out, Lizzie, but just this idea of a child coming back home. And as a father who is raising a daughter, it's like, I want to raise an adult at 18. You get out, you know, if you're going to college, go to college. But after that, I want you to be a self-sufficient, you know, adult. But if the point in time comes where you have to come back home, where you've exhausted all your options, I feel like I'd be more accepting of my daughter coming back than if I had a son. I'd, you know, welcome her with open arms, but not as much as my son. And I don't know if that necessarily speaks to gender roles per se, but I guess in a sense where I would be more protective over my daughter than my son. But just what are your guys' thoughts on gender roles, if there are if they exist, if they do, what are, you know, the distinctions, and how do we make those distinctions between gender roles?
I think they do exist. Like, you know, there's like a physical barrier to some things. Like the woman, she's gonna have to, if she's, you know, if y'all want kids, she's gonna be the one that has the baby. Essentially, that's one role. And then as far as like the provider piece, like I think it falls on the man to like be the one who's, you know, making sure the family is taken care of. That's not to say that the woman is not contributing, is not a helpmate, you know, because like my ideal marriage, both will be contributing to the income. I didn't say this earlier, but if it seems better, like I would be willing to be a stay-at-home mom, but temporarily. I don't think, just the way that I'm wired, like I don't think I'd want to be in that situation for long. At least like let the kids get to grade school and then go back. So take a break, I guess you could say. If it's really a break, it's probably not. Yeah, I just had a brain fart. Not gonna lie, to be real.
So would you say like gender roles only would exist within the family? So as you guys, you're not married, do gender roles exist outside of family or no? And that's something that I'm wrestling with too, because even when because I even remember Pastor Jerome was like speaking on like masculinity and things like that. And even when we look in scripture, and someone can correct me if I'm wrong, the times where you see gender roles, husbands love your wives, wives submit to your husbands, those type of things, those are seen in the paradigm of a marriage and a family unit. But is the marriage what defines being a man and being a woman, just that? Because outside of that, what determines, masculinity, femininity, all these things outside of that? And in scripture, I haven't yet to find that clearly defined. So it's something that I'm still like wrestling with, but I was just curious on your thoughts. So would you say that these gender roles that you're speaking of, do they only exist within that marriage and family paradigm, or do they exist outside of that?
If you count courting, I think in a way, yes. Because you look like at several stories, like Boaz, Ruth, made it known, hey, here I am. But he ultimately, courted her, did that process to get them married. So I guess in that sense, I think the whole courtship process, the man pursuing the woman, that's a role in itself.
Pursuing the guy, pursuing the woman, but outside of even courting and that, because that's what I'm trying to figure out. What defines, especially in this society that we live in, where we have to have the issues of transgenderism and things like that. How do we define these roles? And it's so it seems so innate, but there is some complexity to it, that we would have to admit, especially those who hold to scripture, that it's not as black and white. So outside of courting, outside of marriage, and like I said, I want to say yes, that I think men as a society, we should, and the principle should be to look out for women. I remember one time, me and Mylena were taking pictures, and the person who was taking it was my friend's wife. And so she had her kid with her, and so me and Mylena went to the car, and then she was going into her car. But then I saw some strange dude approaching her, and I felt the need to go and say, yo, what's going on? Don't come up with a woman with her back turned, putting a kid in a car. I felt that it was my responsibility to go and look out for her. Now, I wasn't going to send Mylena to go do that, but it's is it that primitive, or is there, some more nuance to it? But I do agree. I just haven't been able to find it and support it from scripture is all that I'm saying. Because I think the basic, principle for a man, provide and protect. But I think a woman can provide and protect too. So it's maybe to a lesser extent, but how are we defining these roles and whatnot? What are your thoughts, Lizzie? Yeah,
I mean, I would definitely say gender roles exist for sure. And I think they're even more complex in 2019. Expressly. I think it's probably been around for centuries, but we're talking about it loudly in 2019. But as far as in scripture, I was just thinking in Proverbs 31, specifically, you see a businesswoman, you see a woman who's taking care of her house, you see that she's nurturing, you see that she's careful about her appearance and make sure that her family's getting what they need. So I think with the entrepreneurial mindset, you see that in the Proverbs 31 woman. And I'm not saying that every single woman needs to be an entrepreneur, but usually when you think of an entrepreneur or a business person, you think of a man. So I think that's interesting to consider. But outside, I would hope that someone would warn me if I were at a gas station. I wouldn't care so much if a woman approached me, but whenever I pump gas, I'm looking around the whole time. I'm trying to see if there's somebody coming at me. If it's a man, I'm going to be much more alert than if it's a woman. Yeah. And I think that ties into the conversation. Even if the person looks like a man or looks like a woman, my perception of them is going to determine how I respond to that. But yeah, I don't really have examples of that either, besides it's something to think about. I might need a week.
No, and like I said, it's something that I'm still challenged with and still trying to think through myself. So I was curious of the opinions of other people. But like I said, I think just some basic ones are, protecting, know, and providing. And I do think, even in courtship, that's really huge. And again, I don't know if I can prove this scripturally, but I think it is both parties' responsibility, but primarily the man, to try to protect the purity of the woman that he is courting. And so, especially within Christian circles, like there's a huge emphasis on purity, a huge emphasis on like fleeing temptation and doing these things. And coming out of that Christian, bubble, I feel like a lot of the conversations on purity are mainly directed towards men. Men struggling with whatever their struggle is. But as I've gone through life, even having conversations with Mylena, I feel like it's equally as a struggle for women as well, and it's something that, we kind of ignore. But if you probably were to look at the statistics, they're probably just as high with men, whether it be pornography, whether it be whatever the case may be, that is just as high. And so I guess number one, why do you think it's such a conversation when we talk about lust? It's geared mainly towards men, and I guess in my experience, women aren't given the same amount of attention when we talk about this topic of lust.
A good question.
Yo, my world don't stop when the beats commence. Said I'm climbing up this ladder just to get over this fence and run far, far away from the games people play. In this melancholy modern day music, Malay, touche. Pussycats with lives to spare that kick in your heart, nice as hell. Yeah, be aware, beware. I hate to see you less a liver or worse. Polar bear, winter time, catch the river. Now that's cold, and like that, now that's old. Didn't buy the last copy of this, now that's old. It's the pepper on your salt, my dudes. I grind it out, and the answer to